Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. In this video we are going to be reviewing my rematch game with Nelson. If you like this video, slap that like button, but without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so Nelson opens up with knight to h3. Now, go to the Amal opening, but for a young beginner, I would suggest just pushing pawns, pushing like either e4, d4 or c4. That's what I would suggest, just get these pawns out and moving. But okay, so I go for the Sicilian. We have d4 and then c4. We don't want to capture, sorry. Yeah, we don't want to capture because that just brings his queen out, and yeah, it's just not good for us. So we have c4 and d4. So Nelson has got 2 pawns in the center, and you maybe could play f4 or something like that. Yeah, f4 is a good move. Alright, so I go with b5. So again, I just want to do a queenside attack, really. Maybe play a6 in the future and just create this nice line of pawns that will be very hard for this this light squared bishop to get out. Okay. And then Nelson plays the first blunder of the game, I think, and that is bishop captures on c4. He just gives up a piece. And I mean, say what you want about it, you just have given up a piece. Okay, so we have b captures, queen to e2. No idea why. Maybe try to hit this pawn here for some reason. Oh well, okay, and I just play d5. So we have castles, and now knight to f6. Now a very clever move in this position would be e5. Nelson should have played e5. That is so he kicks the knight away, and then I could go knight down to d7, but he would have a passed pawn and it would not be good. Okay, so now knight f4, really not doing much, and now e6, ready to bring the bishop into the fray. Sorry. Well, sorry about that. Ready to bring the bishop into the fray, and maybe if I can push e5, bring the other bishop. Alright, bring the other bishop out. Okay, so knight times d5. Knight takes d5. First mistake of the game. Pawn takes, and then e takes d5. We have queen to e7, and now this is probably the first time I've seen Nelson play this sort of move. But it's knight to c3. Now Nelson is well renowned for just capturing the queen here. That's what Nelson usually does. But then this move, I mean, seriously? Alright, so I take, we have knight takes on e2, and bishop to e7, ready to castle kingside. So we have rook e1 and castles. b3, and we have c takes b3. A takes b3. Now Nelson gets a nice open file for his rook, and we have rook to e8. So just putting some pressure on this rook here, saying, okay, you don't have the firewall to yourself. We have knight to f4, and then bishop to d6. Now this looks like it's a really bad move, but I've got a knight that defends this. So, okay, rook captures, check, knight captures, and now rook to a3. I have g5, putting pressure on the knight over here, like this. And also, yes, you're like, alright, you can capture with the knight, but I want to keep my bishop here on the board. So we have knight d3, and then bishop to f5. And you can see that I've got this very lovely, oh, sorry about that, this very lovely bishop battery here. That's just hitting Nelson's kingside, and maybe if I can get this rook into the game, that'll do something about it. Okay, so you have g4, and I'll just take the free pawn. Rook, bishop to e3, f6, and now f3. And now, Nelson's just giving away all his pieces here. He's not playing that well. It's not good. So I take the free pawn, and then c4, probably the best move in this position. I have knight to d7, developing a piece, and also preparing to activate my rook here. Maybe put the rook on b8, and then plan to do a rook lift or something like that. But okay, knight to c5, and I take with the knight. Obviously, I don't want to take with the bishop, as I want to keep this lovely bishop battery, keeping an eye on Nelson's king. Alright, so d takes the knight, and bishop to e5. We have d6 now, and I sacrifice the knight to get 2 pawns off the board. And now you're like, why did you take the knight? Well, because A, it just simplifies the position. Now he's got 3 pawns, and I've got 4. But also, I've still got this bishop battery here. Us. Yeah, and this king is not really doing much. Okay, so you have rook to a6 and bishop to e7. Rook to e6 and king to f7. Rook back to a6, and now the bishop just slides back here to b7, putting pressure on this rook here. We have rook to a4, and now we have this calm a6. We have king to f1, and now king to e6. Bishop to b6, and now king to f5. So with this little king maneuver here, I'm now just trying to get my king closer and closer to Nelson's king. Then I can bring the rook in and like checkmate maybe. Rook to a5 check, and king to e5. And again, you're like, this might be a mistake because Nelson could just bring the rook here and then pick up the bishop. But I've got this pawn here guarding this square, so it's very, very important that I've got this square locked down. King to e2, and now h5, preparing to just march these pawns. We have rook to a4, preparing to do some discoveries here, maybe just start pushing his pawns himself. But I just do h4, bishop to a5, and now king to f5. Again, just preparing this this long diagonal here. We have bishop to b4 and wanting to trade, and obviously I do, because when you're up material you should always trade pieces. So I trade, bishop captures, rook captures, and now rook to b8. Another move in this situation could have just been a5, but then the rook would just slide back and, well, you haven't really accomplished anything. Sorry, maybe the bishop could come out. Could come out and start causing some threats, but once the rook is here, the bishop could just come out and just start hitting the rook, and then you can just push this pawn to victory. But we'll see. Rook to b8, rook, king to d2, and now g4. So I've got a 3. It's got a 3 on 1 on the king side, and yeah, it's not looking really good for Nelson. So now rook to b6 and just h3, c5, and rook to d8 check. King to king to c1, and now the bishop moves out the way. Rook to c6, and now g3. Now, obviously, you can't capture because the pawn will just march its way all the way to the end. So, king to b2, and now g2 and g1 is coming, so it cannot be stopped. So g2. The rook takes, and now king to a3. And as we said, g1, bring the queen into the game, and c6. Queen to c5 check, b4, queen takes c6, b5, queen takes b5, and king to a2. Rook to d3 now. Nelson only has one move, and as you guessed, that's the king that has to move back, which he does. King to a1, and then the rook just calmly moves to here and delivers a nice checkmate. So 51 moves it took me to defeat Nelson.